Star Trek has been killing people on screen for almost 60 years. And the way it kills them isn't normal. There's no gunshot, no knife, no grenade. The franchise invented an entire taxonomy of death that doesn't exist anywhere else in fiction. Vaporized by a phaser set to maximum. Disassembled mid-transport. Aged 60 years in 3 seconds. Eaten by a sentient oil slick. Assimilated by a hive mind. Today, I'm breaking down every major way to die in Star Trek and exactly what each death actually does to the human body. Starting with the one Starfleet uses every day. Phaser disintegration. Here's the thing about disintegration. It's not a clean death. Starfleet wants you to believe it is. The visual on screen looks elegant, a red glow, a brief shimmer, and the body is gone. But the actual mechanics are horrifying. A phaser set to maximum doesn't make the target disappear. It accelerates every molecule in the body to a state of subatomic disassembly. For roughly half a second, the victim's nervous system is still firing as the body cooks from the inside out. Pain receptors register everything until the brain itself dissolves. Captain Kirk vaporized dozens of opponents across 3 seasons of the original series. Each one took less than a second on screen. In universe, each one was a fraction of a second of complete agony, followed by complete erasure. There's no body to bury, no DNA to identify. Starfleet's most common method of killing is also its most psychologically convenient, because there's nothing left behind to remind anyone what happened. Then, there's death by transporter malfunction. The transporter takes a person, scans every molecule of their body, disassembles them at the source, and reassembles them at the destination. For the brief window when the pattern is in the buffer, the person doesn't physically exist, they're data. If anything goes wrong during that window, the data degrades. The body doesn't come back the way it left. The most famous transporter accident in Trek canon is from Star Trek: The Motion Picture. 2 crew members died during a transport because the system was experiencing a malfunction. The bodies that came through the other side were not bodies. They were tangled, screaming masses of partially formed flesh that lived for less than a minute before mercifully dying. The Federation classifies transporter accidents as the 3rd leading cause of death for Starfleet personnel after combat and exposure. There's an entire department in Starfleet Medical dedicated to identifying remains from failed transports. They do not show outsiders what they find. Before we get to the next one, if you're enjoying this breakdown and want more Star Trek explained like this, hit subscribe. There's a lot more coming. Item 3, exposed to space. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Death by exposure to space is something Trek shows constantly, but explains rarely. The vacuum of space doesn't make a person explode. That's a movie myth. What it actually does is force every molecule of air out of the lungs in less than 2 seconds, freeze the moisture on the eyes and tongue, and rupture the small capillaries throughout the body. The victim is conscious for roughly 10 to 15 seconds before losing the ability to think clearly. After that, hypoxia sets in. The brain shuts down section by section. The heart continues beating for several minutes after the brain is dead, pumping blood through a body that no longer has any oxygen to deliver. If the body isn't recovered, it eventually freezes solid and remains preserved indefinitely. Captain Picard once stated that there are an estimated 11,000 Starfleet bodies still drifting in space from various battles over the past century. None of them have decomposed. They never will. Item 4. Crushed by tractor beam. Then there's death by tractor beam, which is one of the most overlooked execution methods in the canon. A tractor beam is a focused graviton field used to grip and tow another vessel. Most of the time, the field is calibrated to apply gentle force over a wide area, allowing safe handling of damaged ships or escape pods. But the field strength can be increased, and when it is, the tractor beam stops being a transportation tool and becomes a hull-crushing weapon. A Borg cube can tractor a Federation runabout and apply enough pressure to compress the hull in seconds. The ship doesn't explode. It simply collapses inward, with everything inside it being crushed before the air has time to vent. Kirk used this same technique in the original series to grip and crack the saucer of a hostile vessel. The trick is that increased tractor beam force is invisible from outside. The beam looks the same as a gentle tow. The crew of the target ship may not even realize they're being killed until the hull begins to deform. Tractor beams are the most polite-looking murder weapon in the galaxy. They look like rescue equipment until the moment they aren't. Item 5. Assimilated. Then there's Assimilation, which is technically not death. The Federation classifies it as something worse. When the Borg assimilate a person, they don't kill them. They overwrite them. Assimilation tubules inject nanoprobes that take over the victim's nervous system in seconds. The personality, the memories, the identity all remain inside the body, but they no longer have any control over what the body does. The drone is conscious. The drone is screaming. The drone cannot move. This is what makes Assimilation the most horrifying death in Star Trek canon. The victim doesn't die. The victim watches themselves be used as a weapon against the people they used to love. When 7 of 9 was eventually severed from the collective, she spent years recovering memories of what she had done as a drone. Most of those memories involved assimilating other humans. She had been awake for all of it. Every drone the Federation has ever encountered was a prisoner inside their own body, witnessing every assimilation, every killing, every conversion. The Borg don't kill their victims. They condemn them. Item 6. Killed by Q. Here's where it gets truly strange. Q can kill anyone he wants with a thought. Across multiple episodes, Q has demonstrated the ability to age a person 60 years in a moment, dissolve a person into their component atoms, remove a person from the timeline entirely as if they never existed, or simply pause them indefinitely. The Q continuum has rules about when this is allowed, but Q himself ignores those rules constantly, and the Federation has no defense against any of it. What makes Q's killings unique is that they don't follow the rules of biology. A person killed by Q doesn't undergo molecular disassembly or oxygen deprivation or any of the standard mechanisms. The victim simply ceases. Sometimes there's no body. Sometimes there's no record they ever existed. Sometimes everyone forgets them simultaneously. The Federation has lost an unknown number of personnel to Q over the years, and the official records have been edited each time to reflect the new reality. Starfleet's most secret loss of personnel database is the one tracking the Q-related casualties nobody remembers. Item 7. Eaten by a life form. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Star Trek has shown multiple species, organisms, and entities that simply eat humanoids. The Crystalline Entity, which destroyed the Omicron Theta colony where Data was created, was a kilometers-wide crystalline life form that consumed all biological material in its path. It killed an estimated 5,000 colonists in less than an hour, leaving nothing behind but stripped soil and crystalline dust. The Federation never determined what the entity actually was. They just learned what it ate. The giant amoeba encountered by Kirk in the original series was even worse. It consumed entire star systems. The Tholian web exists to slowly compress and crush ships caught inside it. The space jellyfish from Encounter at Farpoint was a peaceful life form that could have eaten the Enterprise if it had chosen to. And the parasitic creatures from Conspiracy, the Season 1 TNG arc that was never followed up on, burrowed into the brains of Starfleet officers and used the bodies as hosts before consuming them from the inside. Star Trek has been very consistent on one thing. Space is full of things that want to eat you. The Federation tries to negotiate. The Crystalline Entity doesn't negotiate. It just keeps moving. Item 8. Killed by Armus. Then there's Armus, the sentient oil slick. Armus appeared in exactly one episode of The Next Generation, and in that episode, it killed Tasha Yar with a single touch. Armus is a creature composed entirely of malevolence, the negative emotions that another species discarded when they evolved past them. The malevolence took physical form on an abandoned planet and survived for centuries by killing anyone who landed there. When Armus touched Tasha Yar, it didn't poison her. It didn't burn her. It didn't even physically harm her body. It simply turned off every life-sustaining process in her nervous system simultaneously, the way a person flips a light switch. She was alive. Then she was dead. The autopsy showed no cause. Armus killed her by deciding she should be dead. That's a category of death that doesn't exist in any other science fiction franchise. The Federation lost a senior officer to a being whose only attack was the deliberate revocation of life. Item 9. Aged to death. But here's something the franchise does over and over again. Death by rapid aging. Multiple species in Star Trek have the ability to accelerate the aging process of a humanoid target, compressing a lifetime of cellular degradation into seconds. The victim's hair grays, skin sags, organs fail, and the body collapses into the corpse of a 100-year-old in real time. This happens in the deadly years from the original series, in multiple TNG episodes, in Voyager, and in Discovery. The mechanism is biological but accelerated to impossible speeds. Cells that should divide 100 times divide 100,000 times in a minute. The DNA degrades, the telomeres unravel. Every replication adds errors faster than the body can repair them. By the time the process is done, the victim is functionally dead of every age-related illness simultaneously. It's not a peaceful way to die. It's 80 years of cellular decay compressed into a single conscious experience. Item 10. Holodeck malfunction. Then there's death by holodeck, which is the most ironic way to die in Star Trek. The holodeck is supposed to be safe. Safety protocols prevent simulated objects from causing real harm. Bullets are slowed to harmlessness. Falls are softened by tractor fields. Combat scenarios end before a lethal blow lands. But the safety protocols can be turned off. They can also fail. And when they do, the holodeck becomes one of the deadliest environments in any Starfleet ship. Multiple episodes across multiple series have featured crew members nearly killed by holodeck malfunctions. The Klingon battlefield simulation that almost killed Worf. The Sherlock Holmes program that gave Moriarty real sentience and the ability to manipulate the ship from inside the program. The Captain Proton serials that locked Tom Paris into a scenario he couldn't shut down. Reginald Barclay's holodeck addiction nearly cost him his career and his life. And in canon, an unknown number of guest crew members have died on holodecks across the Federation fleet. Quiet deaths that get logged as accidents and forgotten. The Federation has built a recreational device that is, in worst-case scenarios, a fully programmable death trap. And every Starfleet ship has at least 4 of them. Item 11. Court-martial execution, former. Then there's the death the Federation pretends it doesn't perform. Court-martial execution. For most of the modern Star Trek timeline, the Federation has explicitly abolished capital punishment. But it wasn't always abolished. In the original series era, Starfleet had a small number of capital offenses on the books, including visiting the forbidden planet Talos IV. The penalty for that violation was death. Captain Pike's case is the only one we know of that triggered the protocol, and the execution was prevented at the last moment by his crew. Here's the thing nobody mentions. The Federation didn't abolish capital punishment because it was wrong. It abolished it because it found a more efficient alternative. Convicted criminals are now sentenced to penal colonies, mind-altering rehabilitation, or, in extreme cases, complete personality reconstruction. The Federation no longer kills its prisoners. It edits them. Some legal scholars in canon argue that's worse, because the original person doesn't survive the process. They just stop existing as themselves. Star Trek invented an entire vocabulary of death that exists nowhere else. Vaporization, pattern degradation, vacuum exposure, assimilation, reality deletion, existential revocation, rapid aging, personality overwrite. Every one of these mechanisms is a way of saying the same thing. In space, death is not a single event. It's a category that splinters into 100 different possibilities, each more specific than the last. And every Starfleet officer who beams onto a planet, walks into an unknown ship, or makes contact with a new species is doing so with the understanding that any of these endings could be waiting. That's the part the franchise doesn't say out loud, but says in every frame. Exploration is the willingness to die in a way you have not yet been told about. The bodies pile up because the unknown is bigger than the catalog of known dangers, and the catalog keeps growing. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.